each other. And the fact is, the Lannisters are, their family's being torn apart just as much as the Starks was, in terms of the events of the first couple seasons. And, it's just basically it's mistrust and cruelty and violence. And this is, things that are normal for the Lannisters.
These are now happening to them.
Yeah, these things are heightened. And they're doing it to each other because they can't turn off, basically the scheming, what has got them to the throne. They just can't shut it down. They're paranoid that even each other is somehow, screwing themselves over. It's now personal ambition. And it's kind of the family tragedy, I guess, going forward for the rest of the show.
Right, indeed. And I think it's interesting that, from one Tywin confrontation, kind of coaxing, towards something to another, we next have Tywin's confrontation with Oberyn, which, again, it just might be one of the best written scenes of the entire series, let alone just this season. He walks in, Oberyn's in the middle of yet another, brothel, encounter that seems to just be that. That's his kind of his base of operations that he's made since coming to King's Landing. And that the cat and mouse back and forth game that's by there. It's Shakespeare. It's first Shakespeare. I think that works out because I just watched The Tragedy of Macbeth on Apple TV Plus this weekend, which was probably my first real actual thing. I'm okay, this is Shakespeare. Not Baz Luhrmann's bullshit with DiCaprio. I'm this is Shakespeare. And kind of that cat and mouse back and forth. Their intentions through their body language, but they're not actually being spoken in words. Tywin basically kind of, coaxing him towards oh, okay, you could have done this. And Oberyn being okay, no, I didn't do this, but this is where we're going to go with this. And it's poetry. I don't know, Pat, what's your take on it?
Hey, listen, I think you laying the smackdown on Baz Luhrmann might be a little bit of a problem.
Oh, no.
Listen.
Oh, we got a Baz Luhrmann stand here?
Listen, his Leonardo DiCaprio and Romeo and Juliet, I wasn't necessarily one of the people that loved that particular film, but Baz Luhrmann is amazing. Was it Moulin Rouge, The Get Down, which is on Netflix?
Okay, that's fair.
He's done a lot of things. I think he did Australia, which was
yep.
Very visual, beautiful movie. I don't remember anything of the plot. Maybe it's been way too long since I watched it. But don't throw down the white glove when it comes to Baz Luhrmann, because he actually is a really good filmmaker. But the fact is, in this particular scene, Oberyn speaks plainly with Tywin, and it's the same thing that he did with Tyrion when he came by the brothel earlier in the season. He says why he's there, and that's to get revenge. He tells Tywin, hey, listen, you're responsible for the mountain, and you basically had something to do with this. And Tywin denies it. He basically says, hey, no, there's history is full of people, under orders who disobey and do cruelty. And that's what happened in this case. And so Oberyn responds at face value. Okay, well, the fact is, I'm going to have a conversation with the mountain. And, this means a duel, this means a murder, whatever. Oberyn, is smart enough to understand that he can't just go straight at Tywin. And even says so. And the fact is, he has to take Tywin at face value, and the fact that his real objective is the mountain. And that's a beautiful setup. That is what's going to take place later in the season is obviously the second trial by combat that Tyrion is involved in, and Oberyn is going to be his champion against the mountain. So there's sort of the whole entire season weaving this confrontation, the whole entire time in almost every episode. And I will say that, in this particular scene, Tywin is playing politics. He's trying to rig the jury in his favor. So two of the judges, Pycelle, I believe, and Tywin, they're going to vote.
Mace Tyrell.
Yeah. Well, oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
Mace Tyrell, not Grand Mace.
Okay, Tyrell.
Wow, I just realized that's another one that sounds almost identical.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So basically, the Tyrells, which they want the alliance as much as Tywin wants it, so they're obviously going to vote in the same way, to convict Tyrion. And really, that's 2 against 3. So Oberyn's just serving, to hopefully be convinced as a outside party, and really bring him into the fold. You'll get a seat on the small council. You'll be an advisor in this administration, so to speak. So there is a trying to make a multiple family alliance between the Dornes, the Lannisters, and the Tyrells. And this is maybe a foolish attempt by Tywin, but for the time being, we're left with Oberyn staring down Tywin as he offers his hand. And we're going to learn about his decision at a later time, because right now we got to cut to Tyrion in the prison cell, enjoying his time that he has to think to himself.
Wow, sounds like so much fun. And they're not giving prisoners any books, anything to do. It's not exactly capital punishment. So he's just sitting in that dungeon cell with time to himself. He finally gets his first visitor, the good old loyal Podrick Payne.
Which Podrick bought wine, but that got taken from him. But then he got some duck sausage, some ink, some paper, like all this other stuff. He was able to sneak through past the guards, but the wine, that was the number one thing that he couldn't bring into the cell.
Yes, indeed. But again, like Tyrion, unfortunately, is not in a position to be able to enjoy his luxuries. He has to take what he can get, and he first immediately asks Pod to go and find Jaime for him. The other thing also being that that Pod reveals also is that he was offered a knighthood to testify against Tyrion, and that he turned it down. And it's so admirable that like there's actually like one decent person still in Westeros, considering the fact that he's loyal to Tyrion, the other only decent person in Westeros, and Tyrion immediately realizes the potential of what could happen. He thanks Pod for his time and dismisses him from his service and tells him to get out of King's Landing for his own safety, which is because, quite rather necessary.
The fact is, if they offered him a knighthood to testify against him, that means, when he said no, that means they want to get him out of the way, that they're going to do some sort of murder scheme to get Podrick out. And Tyrion might be a little paranoid at this point, but he is in prison, about to face a death sentence for a crime he didn't commit. So the fact is, Podrick, is a target now that he refused to testify for Tyrion. Tyrion understands this, and Tyrion, says like, hey, you're under direct order to save your life, because there's nothing I can do from within here. My hands are in the fate of my family. So Podrick, save yourself. And that's a direct order. So, I think that's, basically the two of them have this relationship where they're looking out for each other. They understand the chessboard, so to speak. And the fact is, Podrick has nothing left that he can do to help Tyrion. So the only thing that Podrick should do is look out for himself and make sure that he saves his own life.
Absolutely. Yeah, things are indeed heating up in King's Landing, but that's not the only place that things are happening. We're going to make 2 quick stop-offs before we get to the other major sources of action. So that first one being on Dragonstone. Stannis, unlike last season, Stannis is getting pretty like a lot of decent screen time for the first half of the season, kind of establishing where he's going to go next. And, oh, man, Davos' decision to let Gendry go last season is not exactly boding well for Stannis.
Yeah, Stannis is, he's like, hey, you're a literary man now. Read this, Davos. And basically
straight up like pointing a middle finger to him. And again, you gotta be thinking that it's like, wow, so I burned these 2 stupid leeches. Now not 1 but 2 of my enemies are dead without me having laid a finger on them. So Stannis and now Davos, consider the fact that Davos let go like the source of that sacrifice. Like Stannis is just living right now.
Yeah, so Stannis is basically, I told you so. That the magic is real. And Davos has, basically, he can't refute it. And he says so. It's like, I can't refute it. The magic is real, but you can't rely on the magic, right? We need to actually look at the logistics, figure things out. We're going to need men and money to solve this problem and take over the ship. We should talk to Bravos. You know, we should whatever. Stannis brings up the thing. It's like we don't have men or houses that can bring men to our cause. We don't have money. We don't really have the things that we need to be able to fight this war. And Davos, you're my, you know, hand of the king here. You better figure it out. You know, how do we do this? And, you know, that conversation doesn't really go well between the two of them. And Davos is, you know, left, you know, to his own devices. He goes and visits,
Shireen.
Shireen. And, you know, basically they have a reading lesson that they're going to do. And Shireen has picked this book about one of the first knights of Bravos or whatnot, first swords, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and essentially they start reading it, and you know, Davos starts telling a story about the difference between a smuggler, you know, and a pirate. And you know, the fact is, if you're a famous smuggler, you're not doing it right. And you know, he launches into this whole deep story about like how he told someone this, you know, a rich lord, and they couldn't understand the difference. They almost killed him because, you know, pirates and smugglers are the same thing to, you know, people that are affluent. And he, you know, starts thinking about why this is so. And it's because, you know, they really don't, you know, they have a lot of money to the point where the nuance is lost on them. They don't understand it because it's so small that they couldn't possibly, you know, care to figure out the differences between it. And this sparks an idea that's not really pays off in this episode. You know, essentially, you know, it's going to pay off as we go through the season. But the fact is, he gets Shireen to write him a letter that he's going to send, presumably to the, you know, Golden Bank.
Iron Bank of Bravos.
Yeah, the Iron Bank. And he's essentially going to play a trick of his own to get some support for Stannis and his war effort.
Yes, indeed. And I love the part too where he has Shireen do it, where he's like, look, you're a better writer. In order to kind of tie it off, he's like, look, you're a better writer than me. I'm gonna stumble over the letters and it's gonna take forever. And he tells her exactly what to write. It's like I love that little pair, that little duo.
Yeah,
you know,
I think
the two of them.
Yeah, I think the chemistry between the two actors, you know, throughout the series really does work. I think everybody's casted well. Davos is clearly, you know, one of the best characters of the show, you know, from start to finish, from when they first introduce him all the way to the end of this show. You know, he just has that realism, you know, okay, this is what you want to do. Well, I'm telling you, these are the logistics. And no matter what the scenario is, like, it's like, I understand that, you know, Melisandre has magic, but magic alone doesn't win wars. You know, can only be used in a certain manner. So he's able to compartmentalize, you know, a lot of these crazy things that are happening in this world. And he's able to rethink, replan, and relaunch whatever, you know, whatever journey they're going to go on to a certain success. You know, he's very adaptable, and that's what I think we like in his character. And I think the fact is that Shireen, having to write the letter for him, she even says, like, you're not Stannis. Like, why am I addressing this as if I'm Stannis? And it's because he wants to catch attention, you know, and his name carries a lot of weight. And I think, you know, this scene, you know, speaking about great writing, there's a lot of care in this scene, and I think it really does set the Stannis storyline on a good page going forward in this season.
Absolutely. And speaking of another sequence in which we get a brief stop off with characters that just continue to emphasize, I'll say, kind of the survivalist aspect of this world, right? We have another stop off with Arya and the Hound in the Riverlands. It's the famous scene where they're arguing. They find that farmer that, you know, what's it called? You know, the later of which we see the payoff for in season 7, I think actually really well so done, where...
Yeah. How they eat that soup is so disgusting, man.
Oh, it's
like
nasty.
the Hound,
but that's how you can tell they haven't had food for weeks. That's how you can tell.
It's great visual storytelling because, like, at the beginning of the sequence, Arya is going around picking radishes and, like, kind of you know, pensively eating them, right? You know, it's kind of like radishes, like, you know, whatever, but she needs to eat something. And then when they get to that soup, like, it's kind of like a Marx Brothers routine, like comedy routine, like kind of screwball comedy, where it's like the father and the daughter are like, well, we got to pray first. We got to do this. And it's like, oh my God, all I want is that soup.
Yeah.
You know, and
what's going on, guys? Dom, the movie nerd of Talkin TV here. And if you like this video, make sure you click the subscribe button and the like button and leave a comment down below. Make sure you keep tuning in for new episodes, which we have going live every Sunday. That's right, every Sunday at 11 a.m. And as always, remember to always watch more fucking movies.